For 33 years, I prepared Christmas Eve dinner, only to be told I was no longer of any use. The message arrived when I least expected it, while I was arranging the final details on a table I knew would be empty once again. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if you for just a second feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. You'll be helping me to continue unburdening myself. My name is Eleanor, and I live in a 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood in Chicago. That morning on the 24th of December, I woke up as I always do at 6 sharp, with aching joints and a heart heavy with a hope that no longer made sense to hold on to. My faded floral robe dragged across the cold tile floor, and my worn-out slippers made that dry sound that echoes in empty houses. The kitchen smelled of bleach and loneliness. On the wooden table, I had left the shopping list for Christmas dinner prepared: a standing rib roast, a honey-baked ham, pecan pies from a local bakery, festive Christmas cookies. The same dishes I had cooked for more than 3 decades, hoping that my son Michael, my daughter-in-law Jessica, and my 2 grandchildren would come for dinner. But deep down in my soul, I already knew what was going to happen. The phone rested silently on the small table in the living room next to the family photographs I had placed with so much love years ago. In the largest one, Michael was hugging me on his wedding day, smiling with the joy I thought would last forever. Jessica looked radiant in her white dress, promising me she would treat me like a second mother. "Eleanor, you will never be alone as long as we are here," she had whispered in my ear during the reception. What a painful lie that promise turned out to be. I dialed her number with trembling fingers. The first call went straight to voicemail. The second one did too. On the third, Jessica answered with a tone that chilled my blood. "What do you want now, Eleanor?" "Honey, I just wanted to confirm the time for dinner. I've had the roast in the oven since 5 in the morning, and I made those sugar cookies that Michael loves so much." "Look, I told you last year and the year before, we're not coming. You've already lived your life. Now let us live ours in peace. We have dinner at my parents' house, where there's a real family atmosphere, not like your house, full of old photos and depressing memories." I felt as if a knife had been plunged into my chest. My fingers involuntarily released the photograph I was holding in my free hand. The glass shattered against the tile floor. "But Jessica, they're my grandchildren. It's Christmas Eve. I just want to see them." "Your grandchildren are fine without the dramatic grandmother who's always crying and complaining about everything. Caleb and Chloe need joy, not pity, and Michael agrees with me. He's tired of your melodramas too. Is Michael there? Can I speak with him?" An eternal silence. Then, my son's harsh voice. "Mom, that's enough. Every year it's the same story. Jessica is right. You've always been so intense, so smothering. We need our space. Besides, my kids need to grow up with emotional baggage. Your house smells old. It smells like sadness. That's not the environment we want for them." The words of my own son pierced me like broken glass. Your house smells old. It smells like sadness. The house where he had grown up, where he had played catch in the backyard, where he had cried when his hamster died, where he had brought Jessica for the first time to introduce her as his girlfriend. "Michael, I'm your mother. And I'm a father now. My responsibility is to my family. You've served your purpose. Now it's time to rest." He hung up. I stood motionless, holding the receiver to my ear, listening to the intermittent dial tone that confirmed the connection had been cut. Just as every real bond with the family I had created, nurtured, and loved for 47 years had been cut. The roast was burning in the oven, the smell of scorched meat mixed with the cinnamon aroma of the Christmas sweets I had prepared the night before. I walked to the kitchen like a ghost, turned off the oven and took out the pan. The skin on the roast was black, completely ruined, just like my hope. I sat on the kitchen floor surrounded by the pieces of the broken frame, and for the first time in years I didn't cry. I had no more tears to shed. There was only emptiness, a black hole where the heart of a mother and grandmother used to beat. In that terrible stillness I began to remember. I remembered the sleepless nights when Michael had a fever as a child. I remembered the loans I took out to pay for his engineering degree. I remembered the $50,000 I took from my savings to help them with the down payment on their condo in Lincoln Park. I remembered the afternoons I spent watching Caleb and Chloe when they were babies, so Jessica could go back to work. Above all, I remembered the last 33 Christmases, eating alone, waiting for a call that never came, a text that was never sent, a visit that never materialized. As I sat on the cold floor, surrounded by broken glass and broken dreams, something began to change inside of me. A small seed, barely perceptible, but real. For the first time in decades, I wasn't blaming myself. I wasn't asking myself what I had done wrong to deserve this abandonment. Instead, I was asking myself something completely different. Why had I allowed them to treat me like this for so long? Outside, the bells of St. James Church began to ring, announcing that Christmas Eve had officially arrived. Neighbors greeted each other on the street, loaded with gifts and smiles. Children ran in their new coats, and families headed toward houses where tables full of love and hot food awaited them. I was still sitting in my empty kitchen, but something was being born inside me, something that had been waiting 33 years to awaken. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the master bed I had shared with my husband Arthur for 20 years, staring at the water stains on the ceiling that I had never dared to fix because I had to save for the grandchildren's expenses. The heat was on low, as always, because every dollar I didn't spend on myself was a dollar I could send to Michael's account when he asked for help. And boy, had he asked for help over the years. I closed my eyes, and the images came like a painful avalanche. I remembered that February morning in 2010 when Michael showed up at my door with red eyes and a crumpled paper in his hand. It was a foreclosure notice. His consulting firm had just gone bankrupt, and he had co-signed a personal loan for $80,000. "Mom, I'm going to lose everything." He had cried like a child who had fallen off his bike. "Jessica is pregnant with Caleb. We can't end up on the street. Only you can help me." I didn't have $80,000, but I had the house. I mortgaged it without a second thought, putting it up as collateral so the bank would lend my son the money. Arthur had died 3 years earlier, and that house was the only thing I had left of him. But what was an empty house compared to the happiness of my only son? "I'll pay you back, Mom. I swear." In 2 years tops, he had promised as he signed the papers that turned my home into a mortgaged property. 14 years had passed. The mortgage was still not fully paid off. But it wasn't just that. In 2012, when Chloe was born, Jessica had come to see me with that charming smile she knew how to put on when she needed something. "Eleanor, you know how much we love you. You're the best mother-in-law a girl could ask for, and you're so good with Caleb. He adores you. We were wondering if you could help us with something. The best preschool in the city, St. Francis, has a spot for Caleb, but it's very expensive, $1,500 a month, and we just can't afford it with Chloe on the way. We were thinking, since you're so good with children, maybe you could help us with the tuition. It would only be for a few years, until Caleb starts elementary school." I nodded, my heart swelling with pride. My grandson would go to the best school. Of course, Jessica, anything for my grandchildren. And so, for the next 3 years, I transferred $1,500 to their account every month. Then came elementary school, then middle school, then high school. Each time, a new expense, a new request, a new promise of repayment that never materialized. By the time Caleb was 13, I had paid for his entire education, from preschool to high school. And for Chloe's as well, over $100,000 in school fees alone. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the emotional cost. The constant feeling that I was only valued for what I could provide. The endless Christmases alone, waiting for a call that never came. The empty promises, the dismissive tones, the casual cruelty. That night, after Michael hung up on me, I lay awake, the weight of 33 years of abandonment crushing me. But then a new feeling began to stir. Anger. A cold, steady anger that slowly pushed aside the sadness. Why had I allowed this? Why had I let them treat me like a bank, a convenience, a burden? I had given them everything, and in return they had given me nothing but contempt. At 9 o'clock that night, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Caleb, my grandson, with a backpack on his shoulder and a troubled look on his face. Behind him, Michael was gesturing from the car, telling him what to say. I opened the door. "Hi, Grandma," Caleb said with a forced smile. "Mom told me you misunderstood some things, and Dad brought me over so we could talk." I looked toward the car. Michael waved at me as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't hung up on me twice in one day. "Can I come in?" Caleb asked. I let him in. He sat on the couch with the stiffness of someone carrying out a mission he doesn't fully understand. "Grandma, Mom says you're upset because you think we don't love you. But that's not true. I love you a lot." "Really, Caleb?" "Yeah, of course. And Dad says that if you want, you can come with us to the mall next weekend. We could go to the movies." The poor boy recited the words like an actor who has memorized a script, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine, and his hands nervously fiddled with the zipper of his backpack. "Caleb, has your mother told you anything about a nursing home?" The boy stiffened. His cheeks turned red. Well, tell me the truth, son. Mom said that maybe it would be better if you lived with people your own age. that you'd have more company, and that we could visit you on weekends. And what do you think about that? Caleb looked down. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Mom says that old people get sad when they live alone, and that they're better off in nursing homes. She says it's normal that all grandparents go there when they get really old. And do you think I'm really old? I don't know, Grandma. Mom says you are, that you can't take care of yourself anymore. I looked at this 13-year-old boy, indoctrinated by his mother to see me as a burden, as a problem to be solved. Caleb had been my darling for years, but now I saw in his eyes the indifference that Jessica had patiently sown. Caleb, do you know how much money I've spent on your education all these years? Mom says money doesn't matter, that grandparents have an obligation to help their families. And what obligation do you have to me? He shrugged. I don't know, visit you, I guess. Oh, when was the last time you visited me without your parents making you? Caleb thought for a long moment, frowning. I don't remember, he finally admitted. And in that honest answer from a 13-year-old boy, I understood that I had lost my family long before that day, that for years I had been buying attention with money, confusing obligation with affection, emotional blackmail with love. Caleb, tell your father he can go. You can stay a little longer if you want, but not because he asked you to, but because you really want to be with me. The boy looked toward the window, where Michael's car was still waiting. Honestly, Grandma, I have an online PlayStation game with my friends at 10, if you don't mind. I didn't mind. Nothing mattered to me in the way it had before. Of course, son, go on. Caleb got up with visible relief and headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek like someone following protocol. See you later, Grandma. See you later, Caleb. I watched him get into the car and drive away with his father. I closed the door and leaned against it, processing what had just happened. In a single day, I had seen the whole truth. My family had shown me, without their masks, who they really were and what place I held in their lives. I was not the beloved grandmother, nor the respect mother, nor the woman who deserved dignity. I was a walking bank account, an obstacle between them and my inheritance, a nuisance to be managed as efficiently as possible. But I had also discovered something more important, that I was no longer afraid to see them for who they were. And that, surprisingly, made me feel free for the first time in decades. That night, I slept for 7 hours straight for the first time in years. I didn't wake up at 3:00 in the morning worrying if Michael might need money for some unforeseen expense. I didn't get up at 5:00 thinking about what I could cook to tempt them to visit. I didn't spend the night replaying conversations I never had, imagining ways to win back an affection that never existed. I woke up at 8:30 in the morning on December 30th with a strange feeling in my chest. It took me a few minutes to identify it. Peace, a deep sense of peace. Like when you finally stop fighting a current that's dragging you under and decide to swim in another direction. I got up. I took a slow shower. And for the first time in months, I put on the blue blouse I had bought last year and had never dared to wear because it was too elegant for being home alone. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a 75-year-old woman who had the right to dress nicely for herself without needing to impress anyone or justify her decisions. I ate breakfast at the dining room table instead of standing in the kitchen as I had done for years out of habit. I put out the good tablecloth, took out the porcelain dishes I saved for special visitors, and prepared a breakfast like the old days. Coffee with milk, toast with tomato and olive oil, fresh orange juice. I took my time, savored every bite, and didn't turn on the television to fill the silence. The silence no longer scared me. After breakfast, I did something I had been putting off for years. I called the bank. Good morning. How can I help you? Good morning. My name is Eleanor Morales. I need to cancel all the automatic transfers from my account. One moment, please. Are you referring to automatic bill payments? No. I'm referring to the monthly transfers to my son, Michael Morales, and my daughter-in-law, Jessica Morales. I want them all canceled immediately. There was a pause on the other end. Understood, Ms. Morales. I've processed your request. The transfers will be canceled within 24 hours. Is there anything else I can help you with? Yes, actually. I'd like to open a new savings account, a high-yield one, and transfer a significant portion of my current savings into it. Of course. I can help you with that right now. That afternoon, I called my financial advisor. Mr. Henderson, I'd like to review my will. Eleanor, it's good to hear from you. What changes are you considering? I want to remove Michael and Jessica from my will entirely. And I want to set up a trust for my grandchildren, Caleb and Chloe, that they can access when they turn 25. but only for educational purposes, or to buy a first home with strict oversight. That's a significant change, Eleanor. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Mr. Henderson. They will not inherit a penny from me directly. My house, my remaining savings, everything else will go to charities I've selected, and a portion to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. As you wish, Eleanor. I'll prepare the new documents and send them over for your signature. The next day, I went to the library. I hadn't been to a library in decades. I walked through the aisles, inhaling the scent of old paper and new possibilities. I found a flyer for a book club for seniors. Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. It sounded intriguing. I signed up. The following Thursday, I attended my first book club meeting. There were about 10 women, all around my age, sitting around a large table, sipping tea and discussing the book. I felt a little nervous at first, but then a woman named Grace, with kind eyes and a warm smile, introduced herself. Welcome, Eleanor. We're so glad you joined us. What did you think of the book? I took a deep breath. Well, I found it fascinating. The protagonist, Tita, she expresses all her emotions through her cooking because she's not allowed to express them any other way. And it made me realize how many women, myself included, have spent their lives cooking, nurturing, giving, without ever truly expressing their own needs or desires. I paused, surprised by my own words. It took me 75 years to understand that. I was also one of those women who lived to please everyone but themselves. Until one day I decided enough was enough. At the end of the session, Grace walked me to the library door. Eleanor, it was lovely meeting you. You have a very interesting perspective on things. Thank you. I really enjoyed it too. Would you like to get coffee on Thursday after the memory workshop? You can tell me what you thought of the book. I'd love that. I walked back home feeling light, almost floating. I had spent 2 hours talking with strangers, and it had been one of the best afternoons I could remember in years. No one had asked me for money. No one had criticized my house. No one had implied I was a burdensome nuisance. They had simply valued my opinion and wanted to get to know me better. That night, as I was reading the first pages of Like Water for Chocolate, the phone rang. Michael's number appeared on the screen. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. I had nothing to say to him. 5 minutes later, it rang again. I didn't answer that time either. On the third call, I decided to pick up. What do you want, Michael? Mom, we need to talk. No, we don't need to talk. I've already said everything I had to say. Mom, please, just listen to me for a moment. Things have gotten very complicated for us. The landlord raised our rent by $300 a month. And without your help, we can't afford it. And? What do you mean, and? Mom, we're going to have to move to apartment if you don't help us. The kids will have to change schools. They'll lose all their friends. Michael, how old are you? 45. Why? Because you talk like a teenager. You're a 45-year-old man, married with 2 children and another on the way. It's your responsibility to solve your financial problems, not mine. But Mom, you're my mother. Yes, I'm your mother, not your financial savior. Grandparents have always helped their families. It's normal. What's normal is for parents to support their children until they're adults, not for mothers to support their sons until they die. Mom, please, don't be cruel. We just need you to help with the difference in the rent. It's $300 a month. To you, that's nothing. To me, that's $300 I could spend on myself. On yourself? What are you going to spend 3 sums on? On whatever I please. On books, on theater, on travel, on new clothes, on restaurants, on all the things I haven't done for years because I was supporting your family. Mom, that's so selfish. Selfish? Michael, I have spent over $200,000 on you too over 14 years. I mortgaged my house for you. I worked as a cleaner until I was 70 to pay for your children's school. I have given up having a life of my own to finance yours. And after all that, you have the nerve to call me selfish because I don't want to support you anymore. But we're desperate now. And I was desperate for 33 Christmases waiting for a call from you that never came. And no one was concerned about my desperation. That's different. No, Michael, it's exactly the same. The difference is that you never put a price on my desperation. Mom, if you don't help us, it will be your fault that your grandchildren suffer. There it was again. The same old emotional blackmail. Guilt as a weapon of manipulation. My grandchildren are going to suffer because their parents don't know how to live within their means. Because you have taught them that there's always someone else who will solve their problems. Because you have given them a life of luxury you couldn't afford. Maybe a little reality will do them good. Maybe they'll learn what it means to value things when they aren't just handed to them. I don't recognize you, Mom. What's happened to you? What's happened is that I've woken up, Michael. What's happened is that after 75 years, I've understood that my life is worth living too. And what about us? What about you? You're adults. Solve your problems like all the other adults in the world. Mom, if you don't help us this time, we're never going to call you again. Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. And for the fourth time in a week, I hung up on my son. But this time, instead of feeling sadness or guilt, I felt a sense of power I had never experienced before. For the first time in my life, I had put my own needs before others. For the first time, I had said no without apologizing. I returned to my book and my cup of tea, and I continued to read about a woman who cooked her emotions because she didn't know how to express them any other way. I had already begun to express mine with words, and it felt extraordinarily good.